Oh, good morning. Good morning, everyone. I'll give it a few moments as we start to gather. And I'm going to clean my glasses a little bit. That's exciting, right? Today, we're talking about unlocking magical potential. I need to first discuss a little bit about what we mean by magic and what magical potential is and what you can. Wow, look at that light beam right on my forehead. And what you can do to unlock magical potential. What do we mean by potential? We'll talk about magic, we'll talk about potential, all kinds of stuff this morning. Just waiting for a few people to join. I find, good morning if you're just joining. Nice to see you. Thank you for joining in. We're talking about building, unlocking magical potential, which is your ability to get stuff done spiritually. And it doesn't matter what you practice. It doesn't matter if you are um, a yoga practitioner or Wiccan or you pray or you do ritual magic or whatever. The stuff we're going to talk about today should apply to you. Good morning. Welcome. Thank you for joining. Nice to see everybody this morning. My coffee is very hot. I just made it. This is a Shamanic Coffee Hour. I'm drinking, I think it's Starbucks. Actually, it's Starbucks Holiday Blend, so it's a few months old. Good morning. So nice to see you. And by the way, if your name actually is Andrea, and I assume it is, that is a lovely name. I have my significant other's name is Andrea as well. Good morning. Yeah, look, you you caught me live. Oh my gosh, everybody's saying good morning. Thank you. Good morning. I'm live here. I'm live here. I've got I've got multiple setup. The sun, you can see the sun. Um, I live in Maine, for those who don't know, and we are going to get a heck of a storm this weekend. We're gearing up for like a full day of snow. So welcome to spring. And we say in Maine we have two seasons. We've got winter and mud season, and we're in mud season, but she does. And I've had Um, I know interestingly enough, I know lots of people named Andrea or Andrea, depending on where, same spelling, different pronunciation. Um, so anyway, good morning to everyone. Today we're talking about unlocking magical potential. Good morning to you as well. Um, so many. You're getting snow this morning, yeah. So it's probably traveling over to us. There's a weather watch here between like midnight tonight and first thing Sunday morning. So Andrea, yeah, yes. So it depends on where they're from. I have uh student who is of Mexican descent and pronounces it Andrea, and people call her Drea. So, but what a lovely name it is, and welcome to you all. So we're talking about magical potential this morning. I need to I always do this a little bit, but I need to define my terms a little bit, just so not because I think I know more than you or my definitions of things take precedence over yours, but just so to ease communication, because words like magic, really amorphous, really ambiguous word, right? It's like love. I always say, like in English, we say, I love cheeseburgers and I love my children. And those are not the same thing, right? Hopefully, don't love my children in the same way I love cheeseburgers. I have not eaten any of my children yet. So, but magic is one of those interesting words. So, my definition is a little loose, and it is based on a little bit on the infamous Alistair top of the day to you as well. Uh, we are just a couple days after St. Patty's Day. While I am my grandfather was 100% Irish. I don't really celebrate St. Patrick's Day, and because, well, I don't want to get too political, but um, the idea that St. Patrick drove the snakes out of Ireland. Well, the snakes were what they call pagans. So they were really dehumanizing these people that they drove out of Ireland, and some of those people were my ancestors. So, but whatever. Anyway, I will celebrate being Irish. Top of the morning. Um, so let's talk about magic a little bit. Magic. So that based on Aleister Crowley. It's Crowley or Crowley. I think it's Crowley actually. Aleister Crowley said that magic was causing change in accordance with will. The art and science of causing change in accordance with will. To me, that's a little too ambiguous, right? Because I could pick up this pen and hurl it across the room, and that is causing change in accordance with will. I mean, he's talking about magical will, and that's a whole other thing. So, um, I would say that magic, the way I define magic, is using non-physical technique, tools, whatever, the art and science of using non-physical methods to cause change in accordance with will. What are we changing? We are changing reality. So that's what we call thaumaturgy or miracle work. That's the Harry Potter stuff, right? Or the manifestation stuff, or love spells, or anything like that causes changes in 3D reality. That's called thaumaturgy. It's a Greek word which means miracle work. The other type of change we cause that is magical is in consciousness, and that is theurgy, which means God work, right? So that's more akin to mysticism, where we are raising our consciousness to be closer to divinity, whatever we picture that as. So my definition of magic encompasses a lot of activity, right? It encompasses things we traditionally think of as magic, like ritual magic, ceremonies, spells, that sort of thing. But it also encompasses prayer. It encompasses throwing a coin in a wishing well and making a wish. It encompasses blowing out the candles on your birthday cake and making a wish. It encompasses certain forms of meditation, perhaps not all. Some forms of meditation are mostly about mental training. Good morning to you as well. Gosh, quite a crowd today. Thank you all for your good mornings and for joining. Nice to see you. Um, so so that's magic. So the ability to be effective with magic is what I call magical potential, right? Whether we use it or not, right? So lots of people don't use their potential, or live a, I think back to my old report cards from middle school, not living up to potential. I remember the word erratic written on one of my eighth grade report cards. I was like, what does erratic mean? Well, it kind of means you're all over the place. Okay. I didn't get diagnosed with ADHD until I was like almost 50. Um, so, uh, you know, one of the reasons I go off on a lot of tangents in these talks is that it's just ADHD. It's lack of focus and executive function. But I try to rein it back in and talk about what we are actually talking about. So things are different today than they were obviously 500 years ago. If you were to join a magical order, if you were to even be able to find one, or be invited into one, and you were rich because you had to be, or whatever, or even if you belonged to a religion that practiced a lot of magic. Now, in my opinion, all religions have magic. All religions have miracles. I realize that some say there are no miracles. Um, for example, I believe Islam says there are, or at least some sects of Islam say there are no miracles. but yet Muhammad was taken bodily up to heaven in the Quran. So that seems pretty miraculous to me. I don't know. I don't want to argue with anybody's religion, but yeah, same, same. Yeah, well, it's we understand our struggles. I remember, um, well, whatever. I think part of what I now know was ADHD stuff growing up was always treated like a character flaw. Oh, why didn't you complete your homework? Or why is your desk so messy in school, or your locker, or whatever. Nobody used the term executive functioning. I never got I did well in school. I did extremely well. I was in gifted and talented programs in school, and um, I have two master's degrees, and will probably get a third and a PhD, not anytime soon, but working towards it. So I'm educated, and I'm fairly smart, if I can do say so myself. But there are certain things that are more challenging than others for me. So, magical potential is your natural ability to do things that you want to do spiritually, to cause change spiritually. Now, going back to like hundreds of years ago, if you were to join a magical order, if you could even find one, or be apprenticed to somebody or whatever, you would go through many, many years of arduous training. You would, first of all, have to be selected. Um, if you were in Europe, you would have to probably be extremely wealthy, like the 1% of the 1% kind of thing. Um, the Golden Dawn, for example, which not even 500 years ago, but like in the 19th century to the late early 20th century, the Golden Dawn was full of very wealthy people. I mean, they had a lodge in the middle of London, right? Um, so if you were selected, you would go through many, many years of training and initiation. Now, today, it's very different. I can go buy the books, The Greater Words of Power, or oh, here's a good one. This is a classic. um Simplified Magic is a book on Kabbalah, A Beginner's Guide to New Age Kabbalah by Ted Anders. And let me look at the date on this book. um 1991. 1991, that was a good year. That was the year after I graduated high school. So I I personally, because I know this because of reading up on John Dee, the famous English magician. I have more books in my personal collection in my house than the libraries of Oxford and Cambridge combined during the Elizabethan era, right? Because even books on magic, not even on magic, books on anything, books on mathematics, books on magic. There was no such thing as a novel back then. Um, Novels weren't invented until I think the 18th century, maybe. Don't quote me on that. It could be a little bit off, but during the Elizabethan era, books were extremely rare, extremely expensive. Even after the invention of the printing press, books were still incredibly expensive. Books of magic, even more so. Um, so you couldn't just, you know, grab a grimoire and just start practicing magic. There was a buildup to it. There was a buildup of potential, and the work that you went through was a big part of that. There's a big ritual called the Abramelin ritual. I forget which book it's in, but it's in an old grimoire, and it takes either 6 or 18 months of being completely secluded. Like, you have to be in a place that you can't leave for 6 to 18 months. Who can do that, right? You'd have to be very wealthy. You'd have to have all your supplies, and you can't have people coming in and out. That's the other thing, right? So imagine that in today's day and age, like living. There's a movie. It's a little scary, but it's a good one, that features the Abramelin, a woman going through the Abramelin. I think it's called A Dark Song. Anyway, it's a good movie, for me, incredibly frightening. I know it's not like compared to like some horror movies like my kids watch and stuff that I can't even watch. But it is very frightening. But it takes you through what somebody would go through to go through this ritual, and this ritual was to prepare oneself to meet one's holy guardian angel. And the holy guardian angel is a big topic for another day. That is a very big topic. So the you a lot of this work was about purification. There were, you know, all day meditations and prayers, and you had to abstain from all sexual activity. You had to abstain from probably drinking alcohol, maybe eating meat. I'm not sure. Um, well, I'll definitely do that sometime in the future. There are whole schools of study about what's called knowledge and conversation of the holy guardian angel. That was the intent of many magical lodges, like the sort of the crowning thing. Once you meet your holy guardian angel, and it's not really what you think of from watching movies like the angel, but that movie is really good. I do recommend it. Like I said, it is scary, so think about that. I think you can purchase it on Prime or something. I think I bought it on Prime, so I've watched it a few times. It's a little, I don't know, it's a little scary, but it is accurate in how it presents the Abramelin ritual. So it is one ritual that takes 6 to 18 months of complete isolation. You would have to be very wealthy to do something like these days, right? I think for most people, unless, maybe you owned a cabin and saved up enough and had survival rations or something, and you could go through that. Um, so there would be lots and lots of preparation. There would be purification, there would be meditation, and what you're doing in general with this and lots of preparatory magical practices is you're building up your magical potential. You are building, changing, cleaning, purifying, tuning your aura, your energy body, and you're building what's called magical authority. Magical authority is another whole thing, but let's say I'm going to do a piece of work. I'm going to do a ritual, and I want to evoke evoke rather than invoke. Evoke is I'm going to call a spirit into the space that I'm in. Invoke means I'm going to bring a spirit into me. Um, and there are reasons why you would do both. When somebody prays for the Holy Spirit to come into them, that's invocation. When somebody says praise, God protect me from whatever, that's evocation, right? So um, but there's lots of evocation work in magic. So let's say I want to evoke a spirit to come in, and there's lots and lots of works about using, scrying, using crystals. That's a cool one, isn't it? um, Using crystals, for example, conjuring spirits into crystals, which is basically using magical practices for scrying. um, and so there are lots of, if I'm going to do that, but under what authority am I able to command or work with or call upon a spirit? And so one thing is I can use external authority, right? I can and believe it or not, no matter what your belief system is, there is a tremendous amount of Christian based magic out there. All the Renaissance stuff, all the grimoire works, all that stuff, they might be summoning demons, but they're doing it in the name of Christ. um you can reconcile that however you do, but so calling spirits so that you can see them, or even if you want to do manifestation work, or you're not working with, you're not consorting with spirits. That was the name of the crime that you could be convicted of um, back in the day, consorting with spirits. Also, the title of a really good book by Jason Miller on working with spirits. But even if you're not magically working with spirits, even if you are working with the energy system or the information system or whatever, there there is, there's preparatory work. There's work that you should be doing. I encourage people to have a daily spiritual practice, whatever that is, whether you meditate every day. Meditation is one of the best tools ever for everything. And I don't say that very lightly. Um, for your health, for your mental health, for your physical health, for your spiritual health, meditation. And there are a million forms of meditation out there. You can find one that resonates with you, that you like. You can switch methods, although if you stick with a particular method for a very long period of time, you'll get very, very good at it. But a lot of people today don't give themselves time to reap the benefits. So I teach meditation pretty frequently. And the number one thing I hear from people when I'll say, "Oh, meditation is really good for you." There's thousands of research studies out there, peer-reviewed research studies published that tell you how good meditation is, right? The number one thing people say to me is, "Oh, well, I can't meditate because I can't stop my thoughts." My answer to that is, okay, well, I've got good news and I've got bad news. The good news is you are alive, so you have thoughts. The bad news is you are not yet a fully enlightened Buddha after meditating for 30 seconds and deciding you can't do it because you can't stop your thoughts. Um, you don't, it's like I can't play basketball because I can't beat Michael Jordan in a game of one-on-one, or I can't, it's like I can't because I'm not perfect at something. And that is such a trap for many, many people these days, giving up on stuff. And I heard this on a podcast recently, and I can't remember which podcast it was. Otherwise, I would quote them. But they said the secret to getting good at anything is to be willing to be crappy at it for a very long time, right? That includes spiritual stuff in my experience. There are some things that you may be attuned to naturally because of past lives, because of your parentage, because of your energetic makeup, or whatever, right? So first, um, when I first when I first learned shamanism, my first shamanic journey was like, wow, holy crap, that was amazing. However, I had been meditating for decades before that. I had been doing spiritual work since I was a boy. So for decades, tens of years, I had done lots of spiritual work. So maybe there was some preparation work, or maybe I was just sort of cut out for the shamanic work. But so many people will try something, and I hear this all the time because I paint as well, and um, people, will look at one of my paintings and say, "Oh, that's good, thank you." And they're like, "Oh, I can't even draw a stick figure." I get that all the time. I'm like, "But you can draw a stick figure." But they think that like I just picked up a brush and was able to paint. I have taken art courses my entire life and probably will for the rest of my life. I practice technique. I learned how to see correctly, right? Just because you aren't Picasso or Da Vinci or whoever, the first time you pick up a brush doesn't mean you can't learn to. It doesn't mean you can't be Picasso. You probably can. If you spend there's I wish I could remember the artist's name, but there's an artist here in Maine. His works are unbelievably realistic. Like, I've seen he's in a gallery in I want to say Kennebunkport. I think Kennebunkport. He's got a lot of his paintings in a gallery there that I've gone to lots of times, and um, I always check out his stuff, and there are other artists I like. Incredibly realistic. It's like you're looking at a photograph. Big, big oil paintings, and the guy paints 10 hours a day. 10 hours a day. If you studied painting or anything for 10 hours a day, every day, you would get good at it. You would get better at what you are now. And so I don't know why, but there is this thought, there's this thing, there's this virus, this mind virus, I'm going to call it that, that people have these days that um I can't get good at something. You can get maybe I'll never be as good as Michael Jordan at basketball, right? I don't have the physical characteristics, but if I started practicing free throws today, I would get better at it over time, right? And maybe be able to play in an amateur league. My painting gets better all the time. I get little, little improve. Oh, this is how I do this. Oh, this is how I blend this shadow to make this object look like it's round, right? Like there's knowledge there, but there's skill and there's quality, there's capability. So I'm gonna, I'm gonna say something, and it's gonna sound a little bit braggy, and maybe it is a little bit bragging. Right, right. Yes, you get the stick figure comments too. Yeah. Oh, I can't even do. I don't know what like who started saying that. I can't even draw stick figures. Yes, you can draw stick figures, and you can like I can't even draw a straight line. Well, that's okay. That's what rulers are for. I mean, um, that's why painter. If you ever see a painter with a stick that's leaned up against their easel and they're like they have their hand against the like that's so they can paint a straight line. Yes, anybody can if they practice. You can My grandfather took up painting when he was like 85, something like that. I happen to come from a family of painters. My aunt was an amazing painter. She was a pro and had shows all over and commissioned artwork and stuff. Um, yeah, yes, artists use rulers. Like, I don't get why, the stick figure is the measure of I can't even paint a stick figure. I can't. Like, I wish that phrase, "I can't," or add the word "yet" to it, you know? Yeah, so everybody has a lot of potential, right? You have a lot of things that are your birthright. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that every person watching this has a shaman in their ancestral line, right? Because shamanism was everywhere, all times, every culture at some point. So somewhere in your ancestral line, you have a shaman just out of sheer numbers, right? I mean, it's safe to say that. Um, and it might have been in prehistory, or it might have been, last year or whatever, but we're all descended from shamans. We're all descended from what we would today call witches. Um, so we all have magical potential. And just the fact that you're a human being and a human body with a human energy system, with a prefrontal cortex, with human consciousness, um, that means you have potential. You can build your magical potential. So let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about how some of the ways that you might work to build your spiritual slash magical potential. Right. Right. Yeah, I mean, it is easy. Like we have this sense of learned helplessness, like with politics and stuff, right? Like I voted and the guy I voted for didn't win, and I'm one of 300 million people voting, and what difference does it make? Well, you still have to be, it's still very important to play your part, and you could, if you wanted to, could become much more active. I know a friend of mine, like uh somewhat politically active in like local politics, her own local politics. Oh, I know lots of people in local politics, but like a good friend of mine from way back from middle school, actually, she became, because there was something going on in her school system that wasn't, what she wanted to have happen. And so she, started becoming really, really active and making changes locally. So you can do that as well. Um, Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the I don't know what the numbers are. I suppose it depends on what the tribe was. I know that in sort of hunter gatherer days, sort of before people started planting stuff, human living groups were much smaller. So we'll say there were less tribes and more bands. So you might have a band of 20 or 30 people that traveled together and hunted and lived together. So it could have been even, if one of those people played the role of a shaman, it could be even smaller, 1 in 20 or something like that. So, but yeah, I mean, there would have been vast cultural. There are today, right? So, um, you have shamans in Mongolia. Uh, I keep shifting, and I apologize, but the sun is coming up right there. It's You can see it's like right in my left eye at this moment. So even today, you've got shamans in Korea, shamans in Mongolia, shamans in North America, shamans in South America. They're all incredibly different. I think we're far rarer than 1 in 100 these days, but um, I know, like, I live in a town of 5,000 people, and I think I'm the only shamanic person I know of in this town. Um, so and there are it's interesting. I've talked to people from other states. There are a lot of shamans in Maine for whatever reason. Very interesting that I happened to wind up here. I was born here, but I left for 20 years and then came back, and then felt compelled to learn shamanism. Um, so anyway, if you are doing magical work, whatever that is, you don't feel, and you might feel like it's not effective. Maybe you're doing rituals, maybe you're doing ceremonies, maybe you're doing prayer, maybe you're doing meditation for specific things, and you don't feel it's being effective. Keep going and build up your aura, build up your energy system, build up your concentration. That's a big one for me. Like, as I stated, I have ADHD. um Meditation is really, really incredibly helpful for me, right? Meditation is, you know, like my ADHD. Well, I don't have ADHD medication, but and if I did, apparently I couldn't get a hold of it. Like, ADHD meds, for whatever reason, are you can't get them right now. So if anybody's on those, I feel for you if you can't get your medication. Um, but my doctor gave me a book. She's like, "Read this. It's really good." I've started reading it. It's by another doctor, and it's meant for children with ADHD. But it recommends a lot of um, supplements like magnesium and some other things, right? Some basically vitamins, minerals, that sort of thing that help with neurotransmitters. And who knows? I find shamanism helps a whole lot. Shamanic journeying, I think, enhances neuroplasticity, as is meditation. So, um, what are some things we can do to build up our energy and authority? We'll talk about magical authority. I think I started talking about magical authority. So, if I were to do some work, what is the authority by which I'm going to do that? And I talked about conjuration, sometimes using um, God, or the Holy Spirit, or archangels, or whatever. Um, so that's authority. It's the same kind of thing. It is sort of an implied power through connection, through whatever. What authority do you have? Oh gosh, what is that book? Do I have it on my desk? Um, uh, I don't have it on my desk at the moment, and I unfortunately can't remember the name of the book. But if you contact me, send me an email or contact me through Facebook or something, I will get the title of that book for you. But yeah, it's geared towards this book is geared towards parents with children with ADHD, but my doctor recommended it for me. I guess because I'm very kid-like. I don't know. Um, I have the sense of humor of a 12-year-old, so that's helpful. Yeah, send me a message because I can't remember the exact title of the book, and I'll dig it out and give that to you. Happy to share. Okay, so what do we do? How do we build all of this stuff up? So building up your aura, building up your energy, building up your authority, building up your concentration, your focus, all of these things to make you more effective so you have greater potential so that the works you do succeed. And it comes down to practice and the right types of practice. If you were to join a Golden Dawn type order, they would have you doing specific or Thelema organization, or they would have you doing the same rituals, the same specific. My dog is coming up. You gonna say hi? You wanna say hi? Okay, okay. Nope. Okay. I thought Juno was gonna come say hi. Juno, Queen of the Gods. If you were to join a magical lodge like that or a magical order, they would have you do ritual every day. So they would have you do banishing ritual. For example, you would start out by doing what's called the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram every single day, at least twice a day. They would have you start keeping a journal. They would have you do reading. They would have you memorize the Hebrew alphabet. They would have all of these things are to build up your magical potential to prepare you for their initiatory process, right? Um, is difficult, it's challenging, but it's the same thing if I wanted to lift 500 pounds, right? I wouldn't start out by trying to lift 500 pounds. I would go to the gym and start by lifting lighter weight. And if I were like, whatever the lift I was going to do, let's say I was going to deadlift 500 pounds. Well, I would start with very light deadlifts, but then I would do other exercises to strengthen the muscles, the other supporting muscles around doing a 500-pound deadlift, right? I would be building up my physical potential to enable me to do that lift. And over time, I mean, I would get there eventually, assuming I didn't hurt myself, assuming I did things safely, right? So the famous phrase from the Emerald Tablet is "as above, so below," and this is why I like to make a lot of comparisons between spiritual and physical work, because they're very alike. Your physical capacity is built the same way. Your mental capacity is built the same way. Your magical capacity is built the same way by using it, by stretching it. And so, if I wanted to build my muscular strength so that I could deadlift 500 pounds, I would have to lift heavier and heavier weights. I would have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable for at least a short period of time. I would have to stretch my limits a bit. So if you want to build your potential, you have to stretch your limits a bit. Stretch your limits of concentration. With beginning meditators, I'm like, if I went to the gym and I lifted weights for 3 hours and I'd never gone to the gym before, I'd have a very bad experience, first of all, and I would probably hurt myself. And then I would probably never go back to the gym and never get the benefit of working out. With beginning meditators, I tell them it's like that. Start meditation, do 5 minutes. If you can't do 5 minutes, do 3 minutes or a minute or 30 seconds. 30 seconds of relaxation and concentration. Build up over time, stretch your limits. The next day, add a minute. The next day, add a minute. The next day, add a minute. If you start meditation with, I'm going to sit down on the floor and close my eyes and concentrate on my breath for 3 hours, you are going to have an extremely unpleasant experience. And you may never meditate again. And you probably won't make it to 3 hours, right? You have to build up over time. And so that's another aspect of why people quit things is that they want to be, I taught martial arts for a couple of decades, and people would quit after 3 weeks of classes or after the third class because they weren't Bruce Lee all of a sudden. And then, oh, when do I get my black belt? I've been here for 3 classes, right? When, you know, go home and practice. The reason, uh, one of the interesting sort of superpowers that having ADHD gave me was that I can get super focused on one thing and sort of dive in. And I did that with martial arts. I did that with shamanism, with other things that I'm really interested in. And so I got good at martial arts because I would practice all the time. I would go, and my teacher would have us, and lots of people would quit if you try to teach this way today. We'd go in and we do like a movement. We would do the same movement over silently without speaking, without taking a break for 3 hours. Same exact simple movement. If you can do that, if you can get through the boredom, if you know that your mind is screaming at you, cut, when is this going to end? You get to the point where the movement starts being done through you. Your conscious mind kind of goes away a little. And this was the point. Your conscious mind goes away a little bit, not even a little bit. Your conscious mind just goes away, and the movement is just happening. And then you get into this sort of elated state where you're like, oh, I hope this never ends. Very interesting stuff. But we would do the same movement for 3 hours straight. And then if you ever had to do that movement again, you would never have to think about it. It would just happen. And when I was training, 5 days a week, 3 hours at a time, and then going home and training, and then, thinking about training when I was on the subway and, all of these things, I got to the point where I could teach my students blindfolded. So I blindfolded and I could touch their arm and I could tell from a light touch, I could tell every movement they were making. I could hand them a training knife, not a sharp knife, hand them a training knife and say, okay, I want you to attack me with that knife. And I'm just going to go off touch. And I could touch and completely move out of the way and counter them and even disarm them. And some of my students were like, "Oh, superpowers." It's not a superpower. It's 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 ability. It's an attribute that I built over decades of practice, of learning sensitivity, of learning to move correctly, of timing, of all of those things. And they were because I don't practice very much anymore. They were very ingrained. And it's the same thing is true. You may have sent, we talk about people with this like magical charisma. People can just walk into a room and everybody like and draw everybody's attention. And your conscious mind will think, gosh, look at how that person's dressed, or look at how they carry themselves, or look at, but what's happening is they are throwing off an amazing amount. If you're able to see it, um, it can be blinding, the energy that they're throwing off in their aura. I had a teacher when I studied tantric Buddhism many, many years ago, decades ago now. Um, when I studied tantric Buddhism, I had a teacher who would like it was hard to look at him. He would like blinding gold light coming off this person, and like if you sat down and meditated with him, it would like flash photo, photo opposite. Like you would start see like immediately start getting these like crazy visions. That's somebody who has built a tremendous amount of spiritual power. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah, that's a good way to do it. 5 minutes at a time. Whatever. When I do shamanic journey, I tend to be very quick at it. I'm normally journeying these days for other people. I try to do my own work, but I get very busy. And I'm journeying for clients, or I'm working with students or whatever. But when I journey, I'm doing something very tactically, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, that sort of thing. So every once in a while, I will make it a point to journey for 20 minutes or half an hour, just to keep be able to hold that state of consciousness for a lengthy period of time. And it makes journeying shorter. When I do short journeys, it makes like I can get into the correct mind state really quickly. Um, Journeying requires a very, very specific consciousness. So one part of magical potential, I don't think magic happens without altering consciousness. I know that's a bold statement, but I don't think one of the reasons why our manifestation work might not work, or our spells or rituals or whatever, is that we are approaching them from our ordinary state of consciousness. Consciousness controls everything. Consciousness creates everything. Consciousness manifests everything. And I don't just mean your consciousness, although I think we are all part of the greater consciousness, the God mind, as it were, the Brahman, the over soul. Everything that we see is generated by consciousness. And so getting your individualized consciousness into alignment with what you're trying to do is a skill. It can be learned, it can be practiced, it can be, I want to say mastered. I don't use that word lightly, but you can get very, very good at shifting your consciousness and by the word correct, I don't mean that there's a right and a wrong state of consciousness. I just mean that um, it's your state of consciousness is task specific, right? I would not, if my house were burning down, I would not want to stay in a peaceful meditative state in the center of the house, unable to observe the outside world. I would want to get into my awakened, outwardly focused consciousness very quickly and get out of the burning house, right? So it's correct for the goal, for what you're trying to achieve, for what you're trying to accomplish. Yes. Yeah, and so I use a radio metaphor quite a bit. So tuning your consciousness is like tuning a radio, and there are many, many, many stations, probably an infinite number of stations that you can tune your consciousness to. So one of the things I talk about when I talk about like all of the different planes of existence that we occupy, and that we can become conscious of, is that it is like a radio in your car, and you tune the radio from station to station. Now, you're tuning the radio doesn't make the station come in, it is tuning what it's picking up. All of the radio stations that have ever existed, all of the radio waves that exist, are in your car simultaneously. Some are stronger, some are weaker, some have country music, some have talk radio, some have all the music I listened to is now considered oldies. I mean, I listen to all kinds of stuff. My kids are into Taylor Swift, so I wind up listening to a lot of Taylor Swift. Um, I got mad respect for Tay Tay. We have a joke. I don't know where it started with my girls, that Taylor Swift is my best friend. So, they went to go see her in concert. I'm like, oh, make sure you tell her I said hi when you see her. Um, but So all of those stations are in your car simultaneously. You're just able to tune to which one you want to receive. Your consciousness is the same. learning to tune your consciousness is a skill. Um, you know, meditation is one way to do that. Shamanic journeying is another way to do that. So with shamanic journeying, you're able to access different planes of existence, so different frequencies of reality that exist kind of stacked on top of each other, right? So the world that we live in is considered the middle world, but we don't always see the underlying spiritual framework that is in the middle world. So I'm gonna have another sip of coffee. So I'm a shamanic Swiftie. I'm gonna tell my kids that they will get a kick out of that. I do like her music in generally speaking. It's not my, I have very eclectic tastes. Spotify one year told me like you have listened to 235 genres of music this year. I was like, wow, I had no idea. So you'll find me listening to everything from Taylor Swift. Stevie Wonder is a big on my playlist. I like funk a whole lot, but also like Finnish folk music, or there's a Nordic sort of Nordic folk. I don't know what you'd call them. Very shamanic group called Heilung, Heilung. Watch their videos. They use a shamanic. You can go on YouTube and look up Heilung. They use shamanic drum rhythms in all of their music that I've seen. They use shamanic drum rhythms. Really, really powerful stuff. I can journey to their music. As a child, I was very good at tuning my radio, so to speak. As I got older, I pushed that out. Yes. Um, yeah, so that often happens as we become adults, we get more like we're wide open as children, right? We have imaginary friends, we have this, we have that. And we get really locked in as we some of us as we get into adults. So I would say practice anything creative is really good. Um, learn to shamanic journey, anything that encourages neuroplasticity. Meditation is good, and to try to recapture any of that stuff and play. Like adults don't play enough. So, and by play, I mean like, you know, the way adults play is let's play this game and see who wins, right? Just play with stuff. You don't see adults playing with toys, right? And we often look down on them. We don't see I'm very lucky that I have children, and always kind of maintained a very playful attitude. And I had like tea party, they're too cool for school. My daughters are 17, about to go to college. Um, but we had tea parties, they painted my nails, I went to um I went to a meeting one time, a business meeting, and I had stickers. I didn't see that they had put, like when I was standing, they'd put stickers on the back of my pant leg. So I had stickers all over my pants. And was like, oh, one of them said, I think it was from like a box of Huggies diapers. And it said, I'm a big kid now. I had a sticker on me that said, I'm a big kid now. Isn't that funny? Earth, Wind, and Fire. Yeah, I love Earth, Wind, and Fire. Wardruna, yes, absolutely love Wardruna. My favorite of theirs is Hellwagen, which means the road to hell, but not in the Christian sense of the road to hell. So are you able to just listen to that music anytime and not be pulled into journey? I have to consciously not go into journey when I listen to that music. So there's some music that pulls me into because all music will shift your consciousness. That's why we listen to music, right? I listen to music that makes me happy. I listen to music that makes me sad. I listen to music that inspires me, right? So music changes our consciousness. So if I listen to Hai Lung, I have to consciously not go into trance. I was supposed to go see them live something came up and I couldn't make the concert, unfortunately. But I was like, um, it was in concert was in another state, so I got a hotel, and I was like, I am planning on Ubering home. I'm not going to drive home from this concert, because I will be in an absolutely altered state when I get out of the concert. So, it's a good question. I am, if I don't consciously keep myself from journeying, I'll get pulled into that state really quickly, and I'll start I'll start journeying. Same is true with some didgeridoo music. I will often journey to didgeridoo music. Shamanic drumming will, depending on what it is, will oftentimes pull me in as well. But when I teach students journeying, I don't journey while they journey, so I have to like sit back and take on my teacher's mantle. Well, I'm glad that explains a lot for you. Yeah, so there is a reason why there is music in church. There is a reason why many rituals involve music. So I remember, something random about me, but relates to this. I'm a Freemason. I joined the Freemasons when I was 21. So I've been a Freemason for over 25 years. And I'm not giving away any secrets here. But during my initial there are three main degrees in Freemasonry. You become a master mason at third degree. In my first degree initiation, there was somebody playing an organ, right? And they would play different songs on the organ. My third degree was very special. There was a group of what they call craftsmen. These are people that are ritual specialists, and they were observing an anniversary, and it happened to coincide when I was taking my third degree, and I was the only one taking my third degree at that time. So I got to participate in this ritual in this giant ritual space, full of good morning, full of people, and uh, people did it in like most Masonic ritual, people are wearing like tuxedos and jewels and aprons and whatever. These people were in costumes, like reenacting the it works through ritual drama. They're non-dramatic parts of the ritual, but ritual drama. It's essentially you're inside of a play that you're going through. It's a very ancient type of ritual, and was incredibly powerful. And there was somebody who played the bagpipes as the music for the ceremony, which I'm of Scottish descent, Scottish and Irish mainly, and a bunch of other stuff mixed in, but very powerful for me. Bagpipe music, some people are like, that's super annoying. But it is extremely powerful for me. And I pretty much every year there are a couple of Scottish festivals where I live that I go to, and I go mainly I go to eat, go to eat some haggis and whatever else is there, some bridies and some meat pies, and then I go for the pipe bands, which are absolutely amazing, and also to check out the Highland. One of the festivals is a Highland Games, but they all do those Highland Games where they're doing like caber tossing and really cool, in my opinion, really cool stuff. Um, yeah. Repetitive rhythm. Rhythm can drive trance. So movement of a car can be very rhythmic. It's why cars can be dangerous, because people can fall asleep driving. People can go into a road trance very easily. And I can't drive when I'm tired, especially at night. During the day, it's okay, but at night I can't drive when I'm tired because I start like zoning out. But yeah. So, learning I like that phrase, learning to tune your radio is a good one. So that is an important part of, I would say, any kind of spiritual work. It's interesting to me, when I think of like mainstream mainstream religion, so to speak. And I have visited a lot of different faiths, a lot of different churches, Jewish temples. I've been to all kinds of stuff. Um, uh, you know, some some of it is sort of like and it depends on what people like, but some of it's very light. Like you go in, can stand there, you're bored, you sing the songs, the guy reads the thing, you go out and you have coffee, right? Um, but I have been to, I went to like a high mass one time. A friend of mine got married in this church where they had like nine priests, and they had the guy with the incense censer, and they had like the people carrying the Bible that was silver plated, um and you know reading stuff in Latin and all this stuff. And it even though that isn't my faith, I don't belong to that particular church or anything. Like I could like this long ritual and all of the pomp and circumstance and the music and everything else was really designed to shift consciousness. So I have an appreciation for that. Um, it wouldn't be my cup of tea, because I prefer my I prefer my spirituality to be more participatory, right? I want to be a part of whatever whatever I'm doing. Um, that's just me. I guess you can more or less be the part. And there are people who can, pray themselves into an absolute altered state. Mystics, for example. So mystical work, people are, entering into prayer, or they're doing really deep work, or whatever. They can raise their consciousness that way. Yeah. um yep, yep, yep. Dance with your ancestors, folks. If you're self-conscious about dancing, dance alone. Turn your music on, invite your ancestors in, and dance with them. um what a powerful, as I'm sure you've experienced, what a powerful experience dance can be. Rhythmic movement can shift consciousness, can channel energy. Is just amazing stuff. I would always, in learning martial arts and teaching martial arts, I would always put music on. And my teacher always had music on when we were training. And he would encourage us to play different music at different tempos and that sort of thing, and feel the music and let the rhythm. And part of that was like imbuing us with the rhythm. But my teacher was very esoteric, and so there were a lot of energy. There's a lot of energy work that we were doing as well, along with punching each other. um but yeah, so any kind of rhythmic movement, rhythm drives trance. That's why shamans use drums and rattles and click sticks and didgeridoo and um, dancing. There's uh, there's something I did. There are a few things I did during my training. There was a specific dance we had to do for hours. Talk about repetitive movement and physically really, really strenuous, right? To the point where your consciousness starts to like, okay, we're gonna tune out, where your normal consciousness is like, okay, we're gonna tune out and hand this over to the other part of your mind. So I see we are at the hour, and unfortunately I have to go. This has been just quite a great conversation as usual with all of you. So nice to see some familiar faces and some new folks tuning in. um, I don't know if I'm going to do these more frequently. I don't know if people are interested in me doing them more than I generally do, like one or two a week at most. But if people are interested, I will do more than one, but I'll try to be more regular about doing them. Just wrapping up, some of you, some of you who are on here are actually in the class at the moment. So I'm just wrapping up a class right now, and I'm going to start another one soon, probably in April. Do another one, and I'm working on a much longer, more intense class. So thank you. You have a good weekend as well. Happy Friday, everybody. Happy Friday. Make your weekend the best it can be. Um, enjoy. And I hope, I know I always learn stuff from you guys, and I hope you all learn from each other and learn from me. And um, to you as well. To you as well. Oh, you're watching from my April class? Yes. I'll announce that shortly. I just have to, so the class is all prepared for April. I just have to, make sure that the dates are okay. Because I like to, because there involves live classes as well. So there are, live Zoom classes over Zoom, and so I have to make sure that I can do them, and I like to have them on the same night of the week, so that people can plan around it. So, um, awesome. Thank you very much. Oh, you attend from work. Yeah, don't get in trouble at work, please. Oh, hold on. I gotta. After an hour, TikTok makes me, because I'm live on TikTok here. They're like, you have got to verify that you are still on here. Oh, thank you so much for saying that. And I really appreciate you being in the class. I think there's at least two of you in here that are in the class, or there have been two of you in this live that are also in the class at the moment. So um and we're gonna keep growing that community. Um which I think is really awesome. The class has formed just this beautiful, amazing community in our private Facebook group, and I couldn't love anything more. So with that, I'm going to leave you for the day.